The desert floor still holds the heat of the afternoon sun, but the woman lying face down in the sand no longer feels it. The year is 1851. It is March. What remains of a wagon train is scattered across the Arizona desert. Broken wood and overturned barrels stretching across the ground like the aftermath of a storm. Her name is Mary Ann Oatman. She is 17 years old. Only hours earlier, she was traveling west with her parents, her brothers, and her sisters, chasing the same promise that drew thousands of families toward California. Fertile land, opportunity, a future they believed waited just beyond the horizon. That future ended in less than half an hour. She watched her father step forward to negotiate, hands raised, voice calm, believing reason could still save them. She watched a war club crush his skull before he finished speaking. She saw her mother fall beside him. She heard her younger siblings scatter into the desert, screaming, as warriors moved through the camp with practiced efficiency. Mary Ann was struck herself. The blow split her scalp. Blood matted her hair. She lost the strength to stand but not the ability to hear. Now she lies in the sand, unable to move, unable to speak, listening as the survivors are gathered. She hears the voices of her sisters nearby. Olive, 15 years old. Mary Ann's younger sister, only 7. She hears her brother Lorenzo groaning somewhere in the distance, wounded badly enough that the attackers have already decided he is not worth taking. She hears the sounds of sorting, possessions stripped from the wagon, food separated from tools, anything useful claimed, anything useless abandoned. Mary Ann does not yet understand that she will die here, that her wounds have already placed her beyond value. She does not yet understand that her sisters will live, and that survival will come at a cost that will follow them for the rest of their lives. What she does understand, as consciousness fades in and out, is that everything her family believed about the land they were crossing was wrong. They believed it was empty. It was not. They believed they were moving through opportunity. They were moving through the homeland of people fighting for survival. The warriors who attacked the Oatman family were Apache. They were not acting randomly. They were following patterns refined over generations. Patterns for rating, for selection, for deciding who lived, who died, and who would be taken. The taking of captives was not chaos. It was a system. For much of American history, this story has been simplified or erased. We are taught about westward expansion as a march of settlers into open land. We hear of frontier conflict as isolated violence, stripped of its deeper realities. But captivity was not rare. It was not incidental. It was a defining experience for hundreds of women during the Apache Wars of the 19th century. What happened to Olive and her younger sister was not unique. It followed a structure that survivors described again and again in captivity narratives, military reports, and later anthropological studies. A structure designed to break identity, enforce compliance, and transform captives into something useful. The Apache peoples were not a single group, but many: Chiricahua, Mescalero, Western Apache, Lipan, Jicarilla, each with its own customs, but sharing long-established practices surrounding warfare and captivity. Long before American settlement reached the Southwest, captives had served specific roles within Apache society. The first purpose was replacement. Warfare killed people. Communities needed women and children to survive. Captives could be absorbed, married, raised, and made part of the future. The second purpose was labor, processing hides, gathering food, carrying water.
Maintaining camp.
A captive who worked and complied freed others to hunt, raid, or defend the band. The third purpose was trade. Captives were valuable commodities. Apache bands traded women and children to Comanche, Navajo, Mojave, and others in exchange for horses, weapons, or supplies. The fourth purpose was psychological warfare. Killing was quick. Capture was terrifying. The knowledge that one could be taken and transformed spread fear across frontier settlements in ways that shaped migration and military policy. The fifth purpose was status. A warrior who returned with captives demonstrated skill, courage, and success. Captives were proof. Every aspect of captivity followed from these purposes. Nothing was random. The Oatman family entered this system without understanding any of it. Poorly armed, poorly informed, traveling through contested territory at a moment of rising conflict. When Apache warriors encountered them, the family represented opportunity. Selection happened quickly. Adult men were dangerous. They resisted. They were killed. Very young children could not survive forced travel. They were killed. The wounded were liabilities. They were left to die. Olive and her younger sister were young, healthy, and female. They were valuable. They were bound and forced to march away from the wreckage while Mary and Oatman lay dying in the sand. Alone. The journey that followed was the first test. Apache raiding parties moved fast. Captives who could not keep pace were struck, abandoned, or killed. Food was minimal. Water scarce. Rest limited. The purpose was not cruelty alone. It was assessment. Could the captive endure? Could she obey? Could she survive? Olive later wrote that her feet bled, that her sister cried constantly, that she carried her when she could, knowing without being told that if her sister fell behind, they would both die. During the march, warriors watched everything. Who resisted? Who complied? Who broke down? Who adapted? These observations shaped what came next. When the sisters reached camp, they entered the next stage. Assessment. They were displayed, examined, evaluated physically and psychologically. Their injuries were noted. Their intelligence observed. Their behavior measured. They were put to work immediately, gathering food, processing hides, carrying burdens heavier than their bodies were meant to bear. Work was constant, food barely sufficient, punishment immediate. This was the breaking period. Exhaustion was deliberate. Hunger was deliberate. Isolation was deliberate. Captives were separated from one another when possible. Forbidden to speak their language. Forbidden to pray. Forbidden to use their names. Their clothing was replaced. Their hair altered. Their names stripped away and replaced with words meaning captive or slave. Violence was calculated. Severe enough to instill fear. Rarely severe enough to kill a valuable captive. And then, unpredictably, kindness. Extra food. Reduced labor. A moment of protection. Not mercy. Control. Psychological binding. Modern psychology would recognize this as traumatic bonding. The Apache did not need the term. They knew the result. Some captives resisted. Some complied. Some broke completely. Some adapted. After roughly a year, Olive and her sister were traded to the Mojave people along the Colorado River. Ownership transferred. Value exchanged. Their lives shifted again. Among the Mojave, their experiences diverged. Both were tattooed on the chin, marks that would identify them permanently. The younger sister, still a child, was absorbed more fully, treated closer to adoption. She learned the language, participated in daily life. Olive existed in between, not fully slave, not fully family, fed when food existed, protected when protection was convenient, always marked as different. In 1855, famine struck the Mojave. Food disappeared. Many died. Olive survived. Her younger sister did not. She died at around 11 years old. When American authorities finally negotiated Olive's release in 1856, she had been gone 5 years. She was 20 years old. She returned with tattoos on her face and a life that no longer fit cleanly into white society. Her captivity narrative made her famous. But fame did not heal her. She struggled to reconcile who she had been with who she became. She married. She lived quietly. She died with her tattoos still visible, carrying her captivity to the grave. Other women left similar records. Sarah and Horn, captured in Texas, described being worked until she no longer felt her body as her own. She survived through dissociation. She returned. She remarried. She lived with nightmares until her death. Larsena Pennington Page resisted. She was beaten. She learned resistance only increased suffering. She was rescued after 1 month, but carried the experience for more than 50 years. Francesca Johnson spent 11 years among the Lipan Apache. She bore children. She formed attachments. When recovered, she resisted leaving. Rescue was another trauma. Her fate afterward is unknown. Military records mention a nameless woman recovered in Arizona, unable to speak coherently, scarred, mentally shattered. She was institutionalized. Her name was never recorded. Some captives adapted. Some survived. Some were destroyed. Return was not an ending. Returned women faced suspicion. Their bodies bore marks. Their minds carried scars. Society demanded gratitude, not complexity. Silence was expected. Apache captivity must be understood within a wider violence. Apache communities were themselves hunted, massacred, displaced. Bounties were paid for Apache scalps. Entire villages were destroyed. Atrocities existed on all sides. Context does not erase suffering. It explains it. Mary and Oatman died alone in the desert. Olive lived with the marks of captivity for the rest of her life. Hundreds of other women disappeared into history with no names, no narratives, no graves. They were not symbols. They were not myths. They were people. This is what captivity looked like. This is what the sources describe. This is what frontier history often hides. Remember them. If you want more forgotten histories told clearly and honestly, stay here.